very good afternoon to you and welcome to another edition of Just Africa, where we develop, or we dive rather deep into the intersection of innovation, policy and sustainable development across the continent. Today we explore a financial innovation that merges conservation with capital markets, wildlife bonds, as the Global Environment Facility unveils a $150 million plan to expand wildlife conservation bonds. This new wave of biodiversity finance aims to unlock as much as $1.5 billion in funding for ecosystems across the continent of Africa and the global south. But beyond the figures, what does this mean for the national economies, investors, and Africa's fragile biodiversity system? Can Africa turn conservation into capital? And will local communities reap the benefits? These are some of the questions that we will be asking. In fact, what exactly is wildlife bond? So, Olumide, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Priya. So glad to have me on Just Africa.
In fact, I've been hearing about bonds and bonds and bonds, and now that I'm faced with wildlife bond, I tend to go just to look at it and what exactly it entails. And I wonder, it's like most countries in the southern part of Africa, including the eastern part of Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and some of the countries surrounding it. They have the parks. In some of them, you have the Ado Elephant National Park, you have the Great Fish River Natural Reserve, and some of the animals within that ecosystem are going into extinction.
Yes.
Some of them suffer from poaching, others suffer from, local farmers, go to kill those fishes, and they use those specific reserve for trapping, carbon emissions and all of that. And the fact that they needed these things to be preserved and sustained, the World Bank, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, go to set up bonds in these places for private, in order to attract private capital to this space, for them to come invest their capital. Then, what they do is that for these wildlife parks, they want to make sure that they sustain the preservation and the continued existence of wildlife species like the black rhino,
Yes.
rhino, some form of fishes and other wildlife. In order for you to sustain their lifestyle there, or to sustain the existence of these animals there, you need to have to sell bonds for private investors to buy.
Yes.
And these funds are used to develop the facility to keep this wildlife alive and to continue, the proliferation of the population of like the black rhino and other fishes. And when they are populated, the bank, the World Bank now pays money into the fund for them to pay the private investors. Then they continue that cycle that way. So I was wondering, why do we need to do that? After all, they're animals. They're like, you just can't imagine that from the report, across the world now, we only have 5,600 black rhinos globally.
Globally. Which
And
means
that's
it's going into extinction.
It's almost going into extinction, and the poaching exercise, people who are into poaching there, they are not withholding, they are not being restrained. They are being restrained by government policy and by laws, but they keep going in there to poach on these animals. They go after the rhino because of the horns and the tusk, the elephant because of the tusk. And I wonder if this is going to really encourage private investors. But since the World Bank is in there, I think they are going to make headway. But is it attractive? That's one question. The local communities situated in those environments, they are part of the owners of these facilities. So I like the fact that the government need to adopt that strategy to bring them into the mainstream so that they also will be the ones who will have to look after those animals that are going into extinction. But one other challenge they were facing is that they got to be bribed by those who are coming to buy these parts, either the elephant tusk, the bones, or the rhino horns. And I was wondering, how can we continue to sustain this? So a lot of things came to my mind, though before we go deep into the conversation, I intend to expand more to tell our viewers what exactly this wildlife bond and wildlife conservation bonds are.
It's quite interesting. Wildlife, it's an initiative that, one of the things I like about it, it's tied to achievement. So it's not that you just get certain amount and, there are certain achievements. And one of the achievements, if you mentioned it, which was the rhino bond in South Africa, which was successfully piloted in 2022 by the World Bank. World Bank backed wildlife conservation bond and all that.
Yes.
Now, if you look at Nigeria.
Okay.
How is the wildlife in Nigeria? I remember when I was young, we had Ibadan Zoo. We had some other wildlife places that were beautiful when you go there and you see some of these animals in their natural habitat. But these days, do we have wildlife in Nigeria? What can be done to preserve it? In Nigeria, almost 60% to 70% of the animals are being eaten by various ethnic groups.
Okay.
So that extinction
in Africa, Nigeria alone,
especially in Nigeria.
Okay.
I mean, you hear people talk about eating snakes, monkeys, all types of animals, and you wonder: is there room? Is there capacity to preserve this wildlife? Is there even a location of a vast land? These are some of the things that I would like our guests to really, or I would like us to go deep into and see if we can, find a common ground.
Great. But in Zimbabwe or in Zambia or in the Southern Africa, what's the lookout for the wildlife there? For us in Nigeria, we are more concerned about the biodiversity, the environment, and the ecosystem that is able to trap carbon emission. And I think we have one already in Lagos, on the Lagos Island. I think it's called the National Conservation Foundation, somewhere on Lagos Island when you're going to Lekki. I remember interviewing Mr. Dakbo, who is part of the media communications executive in that area. And I took a walk. Where I was able to interact with nature. In fact, we were told that for about 30 years now, that area has been kept for that purpose.
30 years.
30 years. For about 30 years, there's not been fishing. There's nobody goes to that environment to kill bird, to shoot monkey, to farm, to hunt, or to do anything. So you could see that the whole environment is breathing. Nature is breathing in that area. And I took a walk in one of the long wire cable-made bridges that's almost 30 feet high above the ground. Because you could see trees as tall as 25, 30 feet. And yet the bridge I was working on that is on with cables on both sides. You could see it high up there, and you could see the trees. And you could see the natural habitat. And after I got down from the bridge and we walked into the habitat, we went through the habitat, we came in contact with fish, with ponds, river. We saw monkeys there. And for other people who came around, they're able to give food to the monkeys, and you could see birds. You could hear the sound of nature. And I spoke to him extensively. What's the significance of having a place like this? And he started talking about climate change, carbon emissions. This whole environment in Lagos, Nigeria is a special environment that, that has been built over or preserved over that 30-year space of time that he told me, and how it has the capacity to trap carbon emissions, and an area where we had to cultivate nature, because the way industrialization and development is taking over the world, most of our natural habitats are going into extinction. And whilst we are looking at our biodiversity, probably we should start selling wildlife or biodiversity bond here in Nigeria in order to attract capital from private investors. But you need to have, and it needs to be an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria, who in his own capacity will have to liaise with banks like the African Development Bank or the World Bank, as the case it is in the southern part of Africa, for us to sustain those critical climate-friendly environments that will be beneficial, and because it also has a positive contribution to sustaining the climate environment in the country and the globe. Well, once we move on, let me intimate you with this. The Wildlife Conservation Bond, sometimes also known as the rhino bonds, are a type of outcome based on financial instruments that directs private capital towards conservation efforts, with investors' returns linked to the success of specific conservation outcomes. These bonds are designed to mobilize private investment in conservation, often for endangered species like black rhinos, by tying a portion of the investors' return to the measurable increases in their populations within protected areas. Now we're going to break. By the time we return from this break, I'm going to give another part of this brief, to intimate you again with wildlife conservation bonds. Whilst in the case of Nigeria, we are looking at biodiversity, our focus today should be encompassing both, but we'll take our attention equally to the southern part of Africa. We're going to break. When we return, we'll continue with the program. Do stay with us.
Imagine a world without the roar of a lion, the flight of an eagle, or the rhythmic dance of ocean waves teeming with life. Wildlife is more than just the animals in their natural habitat. It is the lifeblood of our ecosystems, shaping the environment and maintaining nature's delicate balance. Yet, with each passing year, human activities threaten this balance. Deforestation, habitat destruction, pollution, and climate change are pushing many species to the brink of extinction. That is why World Wildlife Day is marked on every March 3rd, a global call to action to protect and preserve the rich biodiversity that sustains life on Earth. It is a reminder that wildlife is not just about the animals, it is about us, our survival, our food, our medicine, our future. Wildlife conservation finance, investing in people and planet, shines on a spotlight the urgent need for sustainable funding to protect ecosystems. It highlights the role of financial investment in safeguarding both wildlife and human livelihoods, because when we invest in nature, we invest in ourselves. From individuals to policymakers, businesses to conservationists, every tree saved, every habitat protected, and every species conserved is a step towards securing a healthier planet for future generations. As humans, let's act before it's too late. The fate of wildlife is in our hands, and in saving them, we just might be saving ourselves. Chike Okolo, Souq News Television.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekbetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakonde began a career in journalism in 1949 with the Daily Service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakonde editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakonde established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakonde ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakonde established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakonde was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakonde was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakonde, Souq Enlightenment. The Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodu Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers, knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodu Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Eko greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, Souq Enlightenment.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. We're still having a conversation as it touches wildlife conservation bond. Now, the Wildlife Conservation Bond aims to increase black rhino populations in two protected areas in South Africa, the Ado Elephant National Park and the Great Fish River Nature Reserve. The WCB, popularly known as the Wildlife Conservation Bond, is a pilot project that involves the issuance of an outcome-based World Bank, that is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development Bank, IBRD restructured bond to finance conservation activities, and together with the financing from the Global Environment Facility, a transfer project risk from donors to investors as a World Bank Sustainable Development Bond. The WCB combines a use of proceeds bond that supports the financing of sustainable development projects and programs in IBRD member countries with an outcome-based mechanism that facilitates access to additional financing for conservation that the parks would otherwise not have to access to. Now, why focus on rhino conservation? Rhinos are an umbrella species that depend on an intact and healthy ecosystem. Conservation of rhinos has much broader benefits than for the species alone, helping to protect ecosystem and many other species that share the rhino's habitat. The activities is financed by this project, and it will help conserve an area of 153,000 hectares that is home to many other species. The park serves as a sanctuary for other fauna and flora species, which serve as a carbon sink and protect water catchment areas. For example, the AENP has diverse mammalian faunas, over 400 bird species and over 13 endemic species of herpetofauna, and provides sanctuary for pollinators that serve the local citrus industry, roughly about 25% of South Africa's citrus industry. The Great Fish River Nature Reserve and many pollinators, the agricultural industry, and local subsistence farmers. Protected areas also help mitigate climate change and act as a buffer against extreme weather events. Now, we have a guest on this program, but whilst we're still expecting him, let's look at this in a different light. Do remember that Nigeria, I was referring to Nigeria about we don't have to do with the wildlife, because I don't think we really have wildlife compared to places like Kenya, compared to places like Zimbabwe or Zambia, compared to places like South Africa, which has now become, yes, the safaris, which has now become a national IGR, internally generated revenue for them, because they use it as a platform to attract tourists to their destination. And when the tourists come, they pay money for you to get to those parks. Even the zoos that you mentioned in some places in Nigeria, those zoos, those animals in those zoos need to eat. They need to feed. So how are they going to be preserved? It's when secondary school students, primary school students are being taught integrated science or those sciences that have to do with natural science, and they need to go there. Probably sometimes the government or some philanthropist will sponsor their visitation to those parks, and those monies that are being made will need to sustain the life of these animals. And if you're not going to be having visitors come, all the time, then a bond needs to be raised. I think it's not just only one channel of funds, attracting funds to those places to develop those parks and to make those parks, or those zoos as the case may be, to attract people, tourists, to come for visitation, so they can continue to watch. Because there was a time I went to the zoo, and that experience was during secondary school. That was when I could see a very huge, big snake that I will compare to an anaconda in a very close range, that we were divided by glass, transparent glass, and those glass were about 3-4 inches thick.
Yes.
For safety purposes, I could see the crocodiles.
Yes.
I could see the lions. I could see the giraffes, and the monkeys were, actually left. They had some form of freedom. They could move around, and you could see some wild goats that you can come across, and you're being taught by the zoo attendant, and he's telling you stories that this lion is about 20 years old. He's telling you stories about this monkey is about 7 years old, that's about 5 years old, the one that was here, stayed for this long, it got sick. And, the existence of this wildlife alone within the vicinity where human beings are caring for them also gives boom to another industry or another area where we start talking about veterinary medicine. So it's the combination, it's inexhaustible, but the sustenance is work. And we have not really made the tourist attractions in the continent of Africa to be something very, very appealing. Though I can say the South Africans, the Kenyans, and the Zimbabweans, the Zambians, they are doing they are doing well, but they need to do more in that climb. So yes. I don't know if you had any of such experiences.
Yes, when there was a zoo. Should I call it a zoo in Unilag? I don't know whether it still existed. I went there also when I was in secondary school. I went there. I saw a couple of animals, not the typical wildlife or big type of zoo in the University of Ibadan. That one, I saw a lion, I saw a crocodile, I saw snakes. I think I saw some other animals. I can't remember. There was this popular gorilla, Harun or something, that was embalmed. Is there, and all that. The lion seems emancipated, will I say? Of course, feeding and all that. But while I was there, you could actually breathe the natural vegetation. It's a lovely. It was back then. It was an experience for me because seeing animals, reading about them in books, and seeing them in real life, seeing them right in front of you, it's a different feeling. And while I also noticed that some of the workers there were looking not so well kempt, so you begin to wonder, it's one thing for you to go to the zoo, it's one thing for you to go to these parks, but nobody takes cognizance of the people working there. How are they being taken care of? How are they being, maintained and all that? What's the government's position towards maintaining this park? Because just like you said also, in other climes, it's another revenue for them through tourists that come. So how many tourists coming to Nigeria want to take a trip down to your state, Ibadan, to go and see the zoo or where
Plateau State.
Plateau State. These are some of the things. Now, if you look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of wildlife bonds, yes, it mobilizes private funds, but it's also high risk for investors.
Okay.
It's a long term and it's scalable. But if you look at some of the disadvantages, it's a complex structure to monitor because it needs close supervision. It has to be followed through. So countries varies in their implementation of these wildlife bonds.
Yeah. Okay. So
So then again, I'm also looking at if ministries, we have the Wildlife Ministry, we have the Ministry of Tourism, if they can come together and see how we can access this wildlife bond in a way that it would actually even start to generate some form of revenue. Preservation also. It also matters because while we always like to consume everything, we should also think about preserving nature.
I see. Whilst we want to consume everything, we should also think about preserving nature. So what are some of the things, the business and investor perspective and the risks that are associated with this conversation? Blending conservation and capital. So wildlife bonds represent a new asset class. And in impact investment, targeting who want both financial returns and measurable environment impact. If we talk about the performance-based metrics, returns are tied to ecological KPIs. That's the key performance index, and the population growth of the specific animals. That's where the investor's money is tied to. So if the performance index or the growth of the population of those specific animals, now we've mentioned rhinos, people are mentioning elephants, and because some other people in other climes find different use for their tusks, they go to some of these African countries to look for them. So those who are investing or buying the bonds, wildlife bonds in those countries, they're only going to get profit. Their capital is secured. They're only going to get profit if the population of the animals, of the rhinos, of the elephants increase in these special areas where their funds are being deployed to conserve and to uphold the population of these animals. And not only upholding the condition of these animals, of course, human beings will be there who watches and cares for the animals. So to take care of the entire management of those facilities. When I went to, there's a zoo also in Obafemi Awolowo University. There's the Ikogosi waterfall in Osun State. That
Lekki Conservation?
Yes, the Lekki Conservation was what I was even talking about earlier, where it needs to be really managed. And the World Bank and the climate change, the United Nations organizations who are, bent on preserving these facilities and these natural habitats across the world are quite aware of the existence of the Lekki Conservative that you just talked about and the Ikogosi waterfall and some other vital places in the northern part of the country, most especially in Plateau State. So when they are aware of this and our countries are working together to preserve natural habitats and preserving specific habitats that has the capacity to absorb carbon emissions, then these are areas that we should be paying attention to. But one other thing is monies are going to be pumped into this, I call them natural assets.
Yes.
Assets that are provided for by nature. Because the Lekki Conservative we talked about, it was an environment that was specifically bred, conserved, watched over for that long period of years before it got to where it is now, and it has become a site. And when you talk about climate change and its effects, it's an habitat that is serving the purpose, because you see all kinds of trees. So if we are to go into the deep forest, or if we are to go into some other states in the southern part, the southeastern part of the country, and Governor Umba is trying to take advantage of the 3 million tourists people who come to the southeastern part via the creation of his airline. Looking at that, that means the creation of that airline alone will not suffice, because the tourist attraction of those specific areas will need to be upheld and kept. So that in itself will have to, find a way of reviving the natural habitats and those significant areas that can serve as attractions for tourists to come and visit. And in that specific case, currently you could see in your screen where we're playing things that have to do with natural habitat. You could see the giraffe and the animals. But as a result of that, we need to go on a break. Probably we bring in Cashcraft at this moment. By the time we return, we'll continue the conversation. Do stay with us.
Welcome to Cashcraft, where we uncover the gold in every enterprise. Today, we explore a buzzing opportunity that is sweet, sustainable, and seriously profitable: beekeeping and honey production. Nigeria's honey demand is rising, but supply still falls short, creating a lucrative gap in the market. Beekeeping is a low-capital agribusiness with high returns, especially when done organically. From honey to beeswax, propolis to royal jelly, every part of the hive has commercial value. Imagine this: low startup, high yield, a beginner-friendly venture with starter kits, costing 50,000 naira to 150,000 naira and profit margins above 60% after the first harvest. That is very possible. Also, are you thinking climate advantage? Natural tropical vegetation and long flowering seasons make it ideal for beekeeping almost year-round. So you know that's a good business to venture into. Now let's look at health and organic market boom. Natural unadulterated honey is in high demand. This demand kept increasing on a daily basis, not just locally but across West Africa and international markets. And it is used for different purposes, from health to skincare, culinary, and more. You may need further research, professional advice to understand exactly what I am talking about. Now, value chain potential. Processing and packaging honey, producing beeswax candles, selling hives, or even offering training is the way to go. Do not miss out. Just so you know, this is a climate-smart, gender-inclusive business that doesn't require owning a land or intensive labor. Here is how to take advantage. Start small with training and support. Enroll in the basic beekeeping course. Many NGOs, agricultural institutions, and cooperatives offer short-term hands-on training. Join a cooperative to access shared equipment, farmland, and easier entry into the market. Invest in starter kits. Begin with 1 or 2 hives. Starter kits typically include protective gears, a smoker, hive tools, and a bee colony. All you need to get started. Explore the full value chain. Process and bottle raw honey for local or boutique markets. Create value-added products such as beeswax candles, lip balm, soap, and natural polish. Build and sell beehives or rent them to farms for pollination services. Offer training and mentorship as your experience grows. Target empowerment opportunities. That's very key. Many donor-funded projects now support climate-smart, land-light ventures like beekeeping, making it ideal for women and youth with limited capital but strong entrepreneurial drive. From the wild to the wallet, beekeeping is more than a craft. It's a golden opportunity. With the right training and tools, you can turn nature's sweetest gift into your next source of steady income. And you know what? You don't need to think twice. If you want to go into it, take that decision now and get started. I am Grace Komalafe, and this is Cashcraft. I'll see you again some other time. Bye.
Madagascar, the world's 4th largest island, stands as a geographical and ecological marvel of the southeastern coast of Africa. Isolated from the African mainland for over 80 million years, this island nation has evolved into a biological treasure trove found nowhere else on Earth. Over 90% of its wildlife is endemic, meaning it exists only in Madagascar, including the world-famous lemurs, baobab trees that look sculpted by myth, and an astonishing array of reptiles, insects, and plants. This extraordinary biodiversity has made Madagascar not only a focus of global scientific research, but also a symbol of nature's ability to evolve independently and richly. Beyond its natural wonders, Madagascar is home to a deeply diverse and culturally layered society. The Malagasy people trace their ancestry to both Southeast Asia and East Africa, making their culture a rare and fascinating fusion of traditions. This dual heritage is reflected in their language, rituals, architecture, and belief systems. The Malagasy language, derived from the Austronesian language family, is one of the few of its kind spoken on the African continent. This cultural hybridity also extends to cuisine, dance, and storytelling, blending African strength with Asian intricacy in daily life. Madagascar's history is equally distinctive. It developed powerful pre-colonial kingdoms, including the Merina Kingdom, which unified much of the island before French colonization in the late 19th century. Unlike many African countries, Madagascar experienced a relatively centralized monarchy before colonial rule. Since gaining independence from France in 1960, the country has navigated political instability, economic hardship, and natural disasters. Yet, it continues to strive toward democratic governance and sustainable development. Strategically located in the Indian Ocean, Madagascar is positioned as a crucial maritime node for trade, conservation, and regional diplomacy. Its economy, while heavily reliant on agriculture, fishing, and mining, is beginning to explore tourism as a sustainable development path. The island's unique biodiversity, combined with its warm hospitality and rich cultural heritage, makes it a compelling destination for ecotourists, adventurers, and scholars alike. In the face of deforestation, climate change, and poverty, Madagascar's story is one of resilience and irreplaceable natural wealth. It serves as both a warning and a wonder, reminding the world of what can be lost through neglect and what can be preserved through global cooperation and local stewardship. Madagascar is not merely another African country. It is an ecological arc, a cultural crossroads, and a national identity unlike any other on the continent. I'm Moyosore Adebiyi for Souq News TV.
Welcome to Femi Walsh Limited, owners of Souq TV Lagos, Our Radio Lagos, Kaswa Radio Kano, and of course Emirates TV Abuja and Dubai. Our niche market for media is business, economy, and development. At Femi Walsh, we promote your company's products and services using our world-class facilities. From our radio to Souq TV, what you get is nothing but the best of the very best.
And if you're looking for the premium production firm for your events and corporate coverage, think no further, because we offer you the best of industry stuff.
With high-definition cameras ranging from 4K to 8K multicam setups, high-directional microphones, and real-time streaming encoders, we give you a production like none other. And if you're looking to produce podcasts, adverts, and documentaries, our team of experts will ensure that you convey your message clearly and professionally. Femi Walsh, Global Vision, Local Impact.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. We're still talking about wildlife conservative bond. Now, whilst we have done justice, I would say, of intimating you with wildlife bond, we will be talking about how the government of these specific African countries, Nigeria inclusive, will need to play a specific role to the preservation of wildlife. Because we were talking, myself and Olumide were having a conversation during the break, and we were saying, is it a sustainable course? Is it a sustainable course where the government will pump money or sink in money, funds, to preserve wildlife? That would mean a lot of things, because it's going to be not only capital demanding, intensive, but the kind of awareness and information that the government needs to carry out down to the people at the ebb of society or the people who are resident in these areas, for them to collaborate with the government, not to go into poaching or carry out poaching activities for the people or the unscrupulous elements who sometimes they fly into some of these African countries to pay the farmers, to pay the hunters themselves to go and hunt the rhinos, the elephants for the purpose of getting the tusks, or to hunt the monkeys, to hunt the species of snakes, probably even the lions and the tigers, the hyenas, because I have seen those. Some of these hyenas, some of our northerners, you see them, they get these hyenas and they tend to perform some form of circus or stunt with them in public places. Others eat these animals. So how is the government going to sit with these people to talk to them? Don't eat the monkey. Don't eat them. We need to conserve and preserve them, because if we do not, and you continue eating them, they will go into extinction, because in 20 years from now, you would have finished consuming them. Because by the time you go hunting this animal to eat them, sometimes they go with their family members, they go with their children, their teenage children, who indirectly is learning a trade that the government is trying to stop, to preserve the life of these animals. And the government will have lots of work to do. That's just hunting. What about the cutting down of these trees?
I think in some countries, advanced countries, legislation have helped solve that issue, whereby in some states, communities, there are legislations against you killing certain animals in that particular community.
Does it stop?
Well,
it doesn't stop.
But it will stem it a bit. It will control it. It will curb it to maybe 40, 50%. So I think maybe the government can look into that area if legislation might work. But ultimately, there has to be, first of all, a specific place that will be allocated for preserving this. So that's where we can start from. A vast land, have all the animals there, hire, get good workforce. Now, that's the trick.
That's another aspect of investment.
Yes, and because wildlife bond is also based on results. The higher the results, the more investment that goes into it. So it has to be, that's why it has to be closely monitored. So it has to be monitored well to see that, yes, we are actually preserving. This wildlife is actually growing. These animals are actually doing well. They are well fed so that they can also reproduce. Yes. And that is how we can start from one particular community. Then we replicate that. We copy and paste that to another state. We copy and paste to another state, and it becomes a ripple effect from one state to the other. So I wouldn't say Lagos should always bail the cat. Any other state can bail the cat.
Lagos always does.
But any other state
Because
can.
I intend to see what we have in Lekki Conservation Center. I want to see that replicated across Nigeria, because it's a beautiful place. I went there.
Yes.
The facilities, the workforce were there, well trained, and it also, like I said earlier, give birth to the animal doctors, because when some of these animals fall sick, they don't let it die. They need to take care of it. There need to be a special or an expert on ground to look at these animals, and to also, just the way they attend to human beings, they will know the cause why they're falling sick. So those environments, we need to have those environments in existence. If we do not, we can almost tell from what we have from our zoos currently, what we see there. We can almost tell that aspect is almost gone. It will need government intervention to revive it. However, the government will ask you, that's not my priority. So how do we make it to become the priority of the government?
Well, I think that's where some research institutes might have to come in. If we can set up private research institute or partner with some institutions and have that. We can start from there also. It could be funded by the federal government or private investors, whereby that is what they are focused on. And year in, year out, there's an audit, there's a monitoring, there's every other thing going on. I think
we will make headway.
We will make headway.
Yes, hopefully we will. So, at this moment, let's go on a break. We're not done yet on the program. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
On the 19th of August 2025, Paris will come alive with the prestigious People's Choice Governors Awards taking place at the Gauche Hotel, Paris. The prestigious People's Choice Governors Awards is designed to celebrate governors who have contributed immensely to their states in different countries across the world. If you are a governor who's gone above and beyond to deliver transformative projects in your state and country, then this award is for you. To partake of the Governor's Excellence Awards this year taking place in Paris, all you have to do is send an email to souqnexus.com with the words, "I accept," and we will get right back to you. You can also send a WhatsApp message to the WhatsApp number scrolling on your screen right now. You don't want to miss Paris for anything, and we are looking forward to celebrating you and your achievements this year. So contact Souq Nexus to make that happen. Over the past 10 years, we've seen that the impact of many lawmakers have been underrated. If you are playing a pivotal role in enacting laws and shaping policies for your community, society, or nation, then this is for you. The People's Choice Legislative Excellence Award celebrates the individual achievement of lawmakers who have worked tirelessly to enhance the lives of their constituents and contribute positively to their entire well-being. Now, if you're wondering where this will be taking place, it will be taking place at Radisson Blu Dubai Creek on the 25th of September 2025. To take part in this award, all you have to do is send an email to souqnexus.com or send a message to the WhatsApp number scrolling on your screen. We want to see you at Radisson Blu Dubai Creek. Wouldn't you rather be there?
Good afternoon to you once again. Welcome to the program. We are reaching you live from our studios at Souq News Television. I am Onyipriya Kurumale. Now we continue the conversation. We have a prominent, fantastic guest who is joining us today to continue the conversation, Wildlife Conservative Bond. We'll look at it in diverse form in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, within the continent of Africa, just the way the name of the program applies. Just Africa. We are joined by Desmond Majekodumi. He is a renowned environmental activist and a multi-dimensional engineer who has received many awards in recognition of his laborious works on agriculture and the environment. He has won the Nigerian Silverbird TV Man of the Year and DW German TV Network Environment Hero, a certified experimental extension farmer for International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, Ibadan. Mr. Majekodumi owns and operates the Majekodumi Agricultural Project in Lagos, the only agroforestry-based conservation farm in Nigeria's economic center, a portion of which has been registered as an urban forest park. Today, we explore a financial innovation that emerges conservation with capital markets. Wildlife Bond, as the Global Environment Facility unveils a $150 million plan to expand wildlife conservation bond. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Mr. Desmond Majekodumi, it's good to see your face. Welcome to Just Africa.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I'm glad we have you on the program today. Now, first of all, wildlife. I wonder why we need to, before we go to the bond and the economic, the business, and the development aspect of it, why are we so concerned, Mr. Desmond? Why should we care about wildlife? After all, they are wild. Of what significance are they to the human existence?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Very relevant. But the reality is that even though they are in the so-called wild, and when we use that terminology, it puts a slight sort of meaning on it that is not portraying the relevance of these creatures, who also are very much part of nature's incredible, miraculous system. They are part of what we call the web of life. And you know, in a spider's web, everything is joined either directly or indirectly. You have different strands. And if you remove maybe just one of those strands, the web will be okay. And you remove another, and then you remove yet another. But eventually, you will remove one strand that will make the whole web to collapse. And this is what is worrying environmentalists very, very terribly now. The rate of extinction of these so-called wildlife, or these creatures that live in nature, the rate of their extinction is unprecedented throughout the history of this earth. And because of fossil fuel records, we have a very good idea of how various creatures in the past went into extinction. For instance, we know that the earth was at one time inhabited by dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are not there anymore. They went into extinction. But judging the fossil fuel records, we can see very clearly that that process of the extinction of the dinosaurs was a long time. It was over thousands and thousands of years. Whereas what we as human beings are perpetrating against the life forms of nature now is an unprecedented, very, very rapid extinction that does not fill that particular gap in that particular strand that was removed. And this is what's going on with our wildlife, particularly because we're wiping them out. Extinction is forever. So we're wiping out creatures that we were not in any way responsible for creating. And a lot of these creatures play an important role. The classic example is something like the vulture. The vulture, which we have a few at our Lufasi Park, the farm that you mentioned, which is in the Lekki area of Lagos. And we converted it with the cooperation of the Lagos state government into a nature park. We still have some of the hooded vulture. In fact, as I'm sitting now, I'm even looking at where the wonderful trees that the hooded vulture nests in are right here in the park. And these are the only area that you will find the hooded vulture in Lagos. Now, the role of that vulture is incredible because they have such a wonderful digestive system that they are one of the few creatures on Earth that can eat rotten flesh, animals that die in the forest or in the natural terrain. They can eat this flesh and it will not harm them in any way, and they will absorb it. If the vulture is not there to eat that flesh, other animals will eat it and they will carry disease into the community. So the vulture alone is one of the key flagstone species in this wonderful web of life, of this wildlife that we are just eliminating anyhow. There you go.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Now, do you think, I want to bring it home to Nigeria. Do we have wildlife in Nigeria? Because when we talk about wildlife in the continent of Africa, I want to just make a few African countries. Are we in the same class the same category when we talk about this wildlife. If they are to preserve wildlife over there in those climes within the continent of Africa, in Nigeria, what should we be talking about of preserving? Is it the Lekki Conservative Area? Is places like that, or do we have the wildlife, as in animals?
Very, very, very pertinent insight. We used to. Most of the animals in different parts of the continent of Africa, even in East Africa, and definitely in South Africa, most of them inhabited our space right here in parts of Nigeria. You know, Nigeria has a very wide, broad diversity. You have the coastal areas, you have the midland areas, you have the more sort of savanna areas going on into the desert. So we used to have all these things. In fact, even giraffe. Giraffe used to be in our desert region before, when it wasn't a desert. It was way, 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 way back. The Sahara Desert was actually a savanna land. There's evidence of that. There's even cave drawings in the middle of what is now the desert of giraffe. And the giraffes thrive in that kind of territory. And we had a lot of elephants too. Today, we still have elephants, but the population is is diminishing very, very rapidly. And just like the vulture, as I mentioned earlier, which is a keystone species, it's a very, very important species in the web of life. The elephants too are so important for helping other life to continue, because with their big weight and energy, they can actually make pathways through the thick, dense forest for other animals to be able to go through. And when they eat the fruit that they eat, they now carry it in their stomach, and later, maybe some hours or the next day, they'll drop it elsewhere with a lot of manure as fertilizer for the fruit of that tree. So they'll be spreading the growth of these various species of trees. And more importantly, with the elephant, that is big ivory tusks. When it's the dry season, the elephant can smell the water underground. If there's a water that's a little bit near the ground level, but it's gone because of the dry season, the elephant can smell it, and it can now dig a water hole where it will satisfy itself. And then all the other creatures in that territory, that's where they're going to be drinking from, thanks to the elephant, which we are wiping out on a very, very fast rate. Oh, yes, that elephant, it is being destroyed in so many places. There are one or two areas, like Yankari Reserve. We're still trying to protect the elephant there. It's a bit difficult because people, for some reason, with their aberrant thinking, they feel that the tusk of the elephant is worth a lot of money, and they feel pride when they can actually have that tusk of elephant hanging in their house or wherever, their club or what have you, and instead of just feeling shame for what they're doing with this animal, simply because they were endowed as human beings with the spirit of witty invention. And we use that spirit of witty invention to develop gunpowder into shooting projectiles, and using gunpowder to develop weapons. And these big weapons now, we use them against the elephant. If it's hand to hand, if it's man to animal, forget it. You're going to go and kill elephant with your hand. Forget it. So total misuse of this wonderful creativity and invention that God has given our brain, which has tremendous capacity, and to go and use it for something as just infantile, as collecting elephant ivory tusks to show, yeah, look at the elephants I killed. Do you know what you've done? You know what you've damaged within the system, within the wonderful, miraculous system of this earth? That all our scriptures tell us that we're here as caretakers, as preservers, as caliphs of the earth. And what we can do is just disobey our God because of our pride and our foolishness. So yeah, Nigeria still has a few, but they're getting wiped out very, very quickly. And very soon we shall feel the collapse of the web of life. And this is what we're fighting against right here in Lufasi Park, where I'm sitting. We are fighting against the collapse of the web of life, because that's what the environment is. It is our life support system. How dare we do something that is going to be inimical to that? How dare we do things that are collapsing this web? So Nigeria has a bit of wildlife left, and we're going to preserve it.
All right, thank you very much, Majak Udumi. I could almost feel the passion you have towards wildlife. So let me ask you this question. How can developing countries tap into biodiversity financing without compromising local needs?
Yes, I think I heard the question. The breeze was blowing a little bit there. How can developing countries protect wildlife without compromising their economy?
No, how can developing countries tap into biodiversity financing without compromising local needs?
Ah, yes, yes. That's a very, very important question because some countries are. When I lived in Kenya for 3 years, which is really where I decided I'm going to, become a farmer and also protect nature, I realized that the Kenyans, like several other countries in Africa now, and even the South Africans from some time back, are actually making a very, very good economic development. Their economy is really boosted by the protection of the wildlife because people will come from all parts of the world just to go and see these animals in their natural splendor. In fact, the Kenyan economy is 90% of it is based on agriculture and ecotourism. And we still have that potential here in Nigeria. And as the giant of Africa, we really, really should be leading the way instead of lagging behind and just, crawling along. No, we were blessed with so much abundance, even of the wildlife. And we do have beautiful natural places in Nigeria that people would enjoy if they come from different parts of the world. So yes, it's actually very, very viable. And we do have some protected forests. The main thing is to ensure that the forests are protected. And we need to protect the protectors of the forest, which is not being done very well. Although recently we heard that the game guards and the game rangers, their salaries and their equipment and so on is going to be boosted. So we're really, really hoping that this will become a reality sooner rather than later. It'll be good for all of us.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Desmond. Now that my colleague has taken you to finance, let's now talk about the Wildlife Conservation Bond. Do you think this is a platform of investment that is attractive? Because when I came across the topic, the conversation, Wildlife Conservative Bond, and I researched into it, I was like, this is already, it seemed like a defeated cause to me, even though the World Bank is jumping into it. So when we talk about the conservative bond, how can you really explain it to someone, to an investor who is looking out for profit, to sink his money into this bond, and how, if this is a viable means of sustaining wildlife across the African continent?
Yeah, money speaks so loud, because money answers all things. Even though the challenge, of course, and the contradiction to that is that the love of money is, as you know, the root of all evil. But that can actually be expanded to the love of all things, And this is, part of the challenge that we're facing now with the tremendous influences that we've had, especially from the Western socio-economic system, which is very, very, very much based on things. It's a very, very materialism-based system. And whilst this can be good in a lot of ways, we need to really, really start putting it in the right perspective and, have a true identification of what we are, of who we are. When you look in the mirror, the reflection that you see is not your true identity. You're just looking at the covering because you are an energy force.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Majekodumi. I'd like to ask you this question. So in what ways do you think wildlife bonds ease the financial burden on national governments? Oh, I think the network.
Oh, I think we lost him.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a technical problem. Mr. Majekodumi, Desmond Majekodumi.
Beautiful name.
Yes, it is. And for the fact that, he had to explain the relationship and the correlation the chain, the food chain, and how the elephant had to maintain existence.
Or sought after
yes,
animal.
with his size, but the significant role it plays in the forest, and not just caring for other animals. Whilst it is meeting its own personal needs. It's caring for the other animals. The fact that he had to bulldoze his way through the forest by making room for other animals to pass, and how he mentioned that he plants a fruit unknowingly, and use the dung that comes from it as a manure, to make it to grow. It's something that's quite notable. But I am more concerned if those who carry out poaching, if they are aware of this significance and this food chain, in which way the man and animal are linked together, maybe it will deter them. Would it? Because there are several times where the government have placed laws, don't kill, even including the horse.